Hello and welcome to Guy Logic. My name is Temko and today we are taking a look at Battlefleet Gothic Armada. Developed by Tindalos Interactive, a French developer, and published by Focus Home Interactive, this is an adaptation of the 40k Warhammer tabletop game into a PC title. What is it all about? Well, it's about fighting in space with spaceships, or space cathedrals, or space orc cities. It's 40k. It's to be expected. Now, I am not exactly the most knowledgeable person when it comes to 40k. In fact, I know very little about it. So I have taken the liberty of asking around everyone how they feel this game upholds to the 40k thematic universe and the 40k lore for Battlefleet Gothic Armada. And the unanimous decision that they have bestowed upon me is to tell me that they find and deem it acceptable, which means it's probably pretty damn accurate in terms of aesthetic, story, characters, and all that good stuff. So if you're into 40k, you might want to take a look at this, because lore-wise, at least it is really good. But how is it otherwise? How is it as a video game? Is it something for me if I don't like Warhammer, if I don't really care about Warhammer? Well, we are going to answer that question for you right here on Guy Logic. Gothic is a sort of 2D plain space battle game. So it's not 2D, it's 3D rendered, all that good stuff, but it's not in 3D space. So you're fighting on a level plane in space with spaceships, and you have a bunch of abilities, and you throw these ships one against the other in a variety of scenarios between 4 factions. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the options menu, talk a little bit about PC performance, settings, options, all that good stuff. Then I'm going to take you to a skirmish game or two against the AI and talk a little bit about multiplayer and everything like that. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about the campaign. Now, I will limit spoilers to that last segment. So if you are interested in this game but you're afraid there's going to be spoilers in here, I will inform you when that happens, which is only going to be during the campaign part of it. Up to that point, no spoilers, I promise. Now, let's get into some options. You can skip straight ahead to the gameplay section if you want. There's an annotation on screen somewhere about now, and you can click that and go right on ahead. For the rest of us, let's go ahead and dive into some options, talk a little bit about PC performance, and all that good stuff. Okay, so video, audio, gamma, and controls. Now we're going to talk about video first, which is mostly presets. You can go with custom and then change all of these as you deem fit, but Epic will mostly suffice for most PCs. Now I have a GTX 780 and I'm able to run this game at a smooth buttery 60 FPS. Your mileage may vary, as always. Computers are complex machines, but as far as I've seen, I have had none to very few performance issues with the game on max settings at 1080p. I run the game at full screen and it has a constrained cursor to window. That was bugged in an earlier version of the beta, and they have fixed that, so that is a good thing. Also, VSync is enabled for the purpose of recording this video, but the game is not capped at 60 as far as I am aware. So you could probably run it at a higher refresh rate monitor. Other than that, we have some effects, some resolution scaling, some textures, some anti-aliasing, which doesn't really tell you what anti-aliasing it is as far as I know. Let me go and make sure I'm not... Nope, just low, medium, high, epic. I'm not sure what epic is, but such is the case, so you can change this around as you like. The game looks decently okay for a space game, I guess, with lots of moving things. It doesn't look stunning. It's not going to be the next benchmarking tool that Crysis used to be. Actually still is if you install some of the mods, but it does not look bad at all. Other than that, we have some audio settings, general sound effects, music, and voices. You can mute all of these and turn on subtitles. I really like that they've added this mute button for each variant. If you, for example, really hate the music, you just mute that. No more music for you. Really good. Then we have gamma. As expected, you need this to have the best possible experience in the title. And lastly, we have controls that are fully rebindable, which is really good. We have general controls, ship controls, specifically for hotkeys for using your various abilities, and setting up engagement distances and all that. We'll get into that when we go to the gameplay section. And then we have the ones for skills. Again, we'll get into that when we get to the gameplay section. The game runs fine on mouse and keyboard. Obviously, you shouldn't do this with a gamepad. I'm not sure why you would even think that. It's a strategy game. It's a real-time tactical action game. Don't use those with a controller. That is insanity. Okay, so That is in essence the options menu. Quick and fast. Game runs fine. It is buttery smooth, and there is none to any issues I've encountered in terms of technical stuff. As always, never trust one person's opinion on this sort of matter. As I said, PCs are very complex machines, and other people may have other experiences. So check the Steam forums, check other reviews, always get your opinion from a multitude of sources. Okay, so let's talk about gameplay. So we're gonna go in a solo skirmish. I'm gonna talk about a bunch of ships, a bunch of factions, everything around that, and then show you some gameplay. So let's get into it, shall we? When you are in either the online multiplayer or the solo skirmish mode, you will get to choose one of 4 factions. You have the Imperial Navy, which is also the ones you play in the campaign. Then you have the Chaos, the Orc Pirates, and the Eldar Corsairs. Orcs, you know, the Eldar are basically elves. They're space elves. Yeah, that's really all they are. They're pretty good, but they're space elves. So you have a bit of a duality here. Imperial Navy has a powerful Nova cannon, which is a long-range, massively damaging cannon with low accuracy. They have very solid forward-facing armor and have a bunch of torpedoes, which are forward-facing cannons. These guys are really bad at long range, and their ships move at the speed of a tank, which is what they basically are. So you want to position your ships face forward, use torpedoes to get damage done, and then use the Nova cannon when at long range. Really, really good. Then you have the Chaos, which flips that quite a bit around. They have very long range ships that can fire from very long distances with decent accuracy. Their ships are really fast, quite maneuverable, and they have launch bays, which allow them to launch fighter jets that do a variety of things like bombers and assault ships against enemy ships. The main problem though is they are very lightly armored, and if enemies get within short range, they have very few defenses against boarding actions and things like that. Followed up, we have the Orc Pirates, which are the anti-Chaos, I guess, or the anti-Corsair. They are very heavily armored, very strong ships for very close range, but they have the maneuverability of a brick strapped to a brick thrown off a roof of a building. They'll get there, and they'll do a ton of damage, but you ain't gonna deviate from their set course. And they're orcs, so that gives them plus points by being orcs. Pretty good. Lastly, we have the Eldar Corsairs that have the most fragile of ships, but they have the most loyal of crew, as mutiny is a mechanic in this game. And their ships extremely maneuverable and very good at forward-facing cannons. They can do a whole bunch of damage, but in turn, they get blown up quite fast. So these are the guys. If you're looking at it, how easy to learn they are and how good the masters are, you have the Imperial Navy, which you'll be familiar with from the campaign if you play that first. These are your middling along the road guys. They are decently good at short range, decently good at medium range. They have a bunch of armor, and you don't really have to worry about positioning as much as the other races. Positioning is still very important. You have the Chaos that are quite difficult. I think Chaos are the second most difficult to master, as you have to position and reposition yourself continually with your ships or get blown up. Then you have the Orcs. I feel Orcs are slightly more difficult than the Imperial Navy, but not by much. They are definitely great fun to play, but the main reason they are quite simple, if not weak, but simple to learn, while still allowing for quite a bit of tactics, is because when you decide on a course, it is very hard to deviate from it. So once you learn how to play those tactics for orcs, it is really easy to get in a rhythm that is sort of acceptable. And then you have the Eldar that are by far the most difficult race to learn, because you need to have a very good understanding of various movement mechanics, various combat mechanics, and various ship abilities from the opponents. So these are your 4 races. We are going to go with Chaos and show you a bunch of gameplay. Now, you pick a Admiral. This is my Admiral. My Admiral for Chaos is going to load into my hangar. And my hangar has a bunch of ships. Now you can see some of my ships got annihilated quite badly. So we're going to go and have to repair those. And let's go repair those. Now, what are ships? What do they do? Well, these are your ships. They look pretty fucking awesome. These are Chaos ships. Orc ships are going to look different. Every race has their own ship look and customization. And this is mine. This is my bigger cruiser, the Flame of Despair. And each ship has a bunch of point costs. This one costs 152 points. For example, this one costs 116 points. And if you're familiar with Warhammer, you will know that based on the composition of points, your army is formed. So a large point pool implies a larger army or a small army with very expensive ships. And your opponent has the same choice. And combat in skirmish is 3, 4, 5, 6, 700 points, however much you want it to be. And you can mix and match ships to suit your needs. Now, these points sort of catch the balance between heavy, large ships later down the line for people who are high level, but it doesn't really balance the various things like levels of ships. Now, let's talk a little bit about how ships work, how leveling works, and how these various classifications work. Ships come in a few classifications. They are transporters, which you can upgrade and do stuff with. They are used for missions called transport missions. Then you have escort ships that are very light combat ships. They do a bunch of damage, they are maneuverable, they are fast, but they get blown up quite easily. But they do not take any money to repair or any renown to repair. So if they get blown up, no biggie. They're just there to fill space on the lowest point scale. Then you have your light cruisers. These are your bread and butter. These are the lads that you will have probably the most of in your fleet. If you have a larger fleet, you'll have a bunch of these guys. They fill a variety of roles. And the Chaos has two variants, the Hellbringer and the Hellbringer Mark II. And these ships have a detection range, a hull integrity, shields, a movement speed, etc. These can deviate a little bit between the variety of ships, but these are both light cruisers. Now, one of them costs 116 points to use and the other costs 109 points to use. Why is this slight difference here? Well, part of it is a little bit of balance, as this Hellbringer, that's 116 points, has access to an ordnance launch bay and a heavy macro turret, and this one has have macro turret and lance battery. So because this guy has a ordnance launch bay as opposed to this guy's lance battery, he is a little bit more expensive. You can pick and choose which ships you want to add, and I have a few of each. Now, each ship added to your fleet stores here and starts at level 1. Each ship has a bunch of stats, a bunch of weapons, a bunch of traits. These traits are based on your ship as well as your favors. And for example, for the Chaos, it means that the ship under its crew under specific events can try to be insubordinate. And this implies that the chance of insubordination depends on certain factors such as loss of hull integrity or the loss of a friendly ship in combat. We also have Chaos Maneuvers, which allow the ship to perform high-speed energy turns and maneuvers, which is really important for Chaos. And then you have Chaos Accuracy, which depicts the accuracy of your macro cannons. As well, this ship has heavy macro turrets. These are going to be impacted by this trait, which says that at 12k units of range, its accuracy is down to 20%, which is pretty terrible, so we want to mitigate that if we can. How do we mitigate those things? Well, there's two ways to do it. One, you have upgrades. Upgrades you get when you level up your ship. For example, the ship is now level 2. As such, I have gotten the upgrade Targeting Matrix, and you get all of these with Renown, and your Renown you get by fighting battles. You see a loop there, you get 5 battles, you get Renown, you upgrade ships, you fight more battles, you get more Renown, you unlock new ships, etc, etc, etc. So I've gotten this one, which is the Targeting Matrix, and there's a bunch of skills. And there are in a few different categories. Now, the same goes for skills. Defense, damage, control, support, recon, maneuver, engine, maneuver, generator, which is defense, deck, which is offense, hull, which is survival and defense sort of thing, and then weaponry, which is also damage. So you can get these various upgrades for your ship based on what you want to do. Now, obviously, we have a bunch of ships that have different upgrades, and each race has different variances of these upgrades. So there's a lot of customization involved in building your ships, and a lot of thought involved in how you plan on using your fleet. Now, you will have multiple ships with a bunch of fleets, and you will never use all your ships in your fleet. So if you are fighting online and you know your opponent is Eldar, or you know your opponent is going to be Orcs, you may want to switch out ships to different ones, or you may want to switch out upgrades or skills by using the reconditioning mechanic for your crew points, and resetting all bunch of things. Now, again, skills consist out of like throwing a disruption bomb, which removes all shields in an area. I have a recon probe I can plump down somewhere and it gives me a detection range. And there's a ton of skills. I'm not going to run through all of them. Now some of these skills are still locked. I'm not sure if they're locked because they're not implemented, because this is the press build. This should be the fully unlocked build as far as I have been told, or if they are going to be added later down the line. As you can see, all the upgrades are all available. Now, other than skills, we also have favors. What are favors? These favors are unique for each of the factions. So you can have one of these favors for a specific ship, and they cost a bunch of renown. Now, I don't have that kind of renown to unlock these favors, so I can't yet. Now, you can see this one cost me 200 renown, but if I check my cruiser, it's going to cost me 400 renown. Why? Because these give a bunch of bonuses, the traits we talked about, for this ship, making it a whole ton stronger. But it's also really, really expensive. In fact, it is very expensive to buy, so you're going to have to save up for a while. Obviously, if you play long enough, this is not going to be an issue. You will have these points sooner or later. Other than all these upgrades for your ship, you also have your crew. Again, these are mostly upgrades to your ship, and you can upgrade them for Chaos at least, for different races. Again, different upgrades, different crew members. They all fall in sort of the same category. You have your cooldown of skills, you have the troop value, which is used to decide whether or not your troops get insubordinate, but it also improves the combat, macro cannons, repairs, all that stuff. You have the Master Gunner, which improves the critical chance for lances and macro weapons. You have the Heretic, which improves efficiency of emergency repairs, and so on and so forth. And you have these sort of for each race or each faction, more or less. Now, once you're satisfied with upgrading your ships, all of that good stuff, and if you're satisfied with the abilities you have picked for your ships, then you can go ahead and go to battle. And let me show you a battle I played earlier, just for convenience sake. And let's go talk about combat and mechanics in that combat. Now, just when you press start battle, you have to select your ships to use in your fleet for this specific battle. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plump in a bunch of ships I already have for this data recovery battle. I am the attacker, which means the enemy has a ship I have to board with a boarding action, and the combat is for 400 points, which means I can assemble a fleet of 400 points out of my available ships. Once the game loads in, you can start deploying your ships in a starting zone. You can do this however you like, in whatever configuration you like, along this configuration zone. After deploying your ships, the combat starts and the game starts running in real time. Now, if you're playing in single player mode, so either against the AI or in the campaign, you have a tactical pause you can access by pressing the pause, which is on the spacebar, and there you have a very slowed down version of the game that runs at, I think, a fifth or a tenth of the speed. So you have a little bit more leeway and a little more thinking time to make a variety of decisions. If you're playing multiplayer versus other players, you do not have this feature, and everything will be in the speed you see right now. Now, the game composes of a few levels of complexity. This doesn't mean the game is complex, not at all, but it does have quite a bit of tactical thinking. Some of this tactical thinking is designed around how you compose your army and fleet versus your opponent, and some of it is based on what sort of race you have or what sort of faction you have. Now, Chaos ships are designed for very long-range combat, something I'm not doing here because I want to get into detection range of these ships to figure out which ship has the data I need to get that data out and get out. So I have to be in close range to use the boarding actions. Now, for Chaos, this kind of combat is terrible. These ships are lightly armored, have a very weak shield, and take quite a beating from other ships, but I have to get in close range to use this very close range boarding action. So I have to be very careful playing this. Now, as you can see, there's a couple of abilities on play here. Some of them are bombs that have a detonation time. You can see this by a red circle expanding into the outer red circle, and once these pop up, an effect happens. This effect could be a bomb disabling enemy shields. This can be a bomb doing hull damage. This can be a stasis sphere. There's quite a few different varieties of bombs they can use. And you use these, obviously, and you enable these by either having a perk on a ship when you enable that ship, or by using a skill when you level up that ship to get that. The same goes for the micro warp. The same goes for a variety of other things. Ships can fight in a variety of ranges and a variety of methods. My ships are all configured to fight at the 12k range, which means their cannons do very little damage, but in return, they are so far away some other ships can't even fire on them. trade-off in terms of combat ability for damage and survivability based on the range I have. You can also put them at 9k, 6k, 3k, and you can set the ships to focus on a specific point where they want to face the enemy. So you could say, always use side barrages because you have a lot of sideways macro cannons, or you have a lot of side firing armaments, or you can use front facing, which is really good for the Eldar that have front facing lances. Other than that, the Chaos has armaments that are ships you can launch off your ships. They are assault ships, bombers, stuff like that you can launch in a radius around you. And you have a couple of other abilities you see me use, like Lightning Strike, the boarding action, and things like that. So you combine these various abilities, your ship's range, position, and gun armaments to defeat your enemy. The main thing you come across when you are fighting is that other ships will maneuver in such a way that you will be stuck in a dead zone. Either you'll be stuck between several ships, or you will be stuck getting hit from behind, or maybe a enemy Corsair from the Eldar has just made an amazing high-speed turn maneuver and is now fighting you in the back. For these situations, unless you're the Orcs, you have maneuvers. These maneuvers allow you to use quick turns and other high-speed abilities to move your ship around. Now, the Chaos Legion has quite maneuverable ships using these things, so I can turn around and move left and right quite fast. The Imperial Navy is a lot slower and has a bigger turn time. Obviously, the Orcs are bricks, and the Eldar are all designed around this feature. Once you have a skirmish, these skirmishes last between 5 and 15 minutes based on how complex they are and how well you want to duke it out. You get back to your hangar, and you can start upgrading your Admiral and getting more out of it. The same goes for online multiplayer. Get an Admiral, start leveling up your ships, start leveling up yourself to unlock new ships, and face higher level players. In the campaign, you progressively unlock new things. So we'll get into depth on the campaign later on, but these are just the way it goes. You have an Admiral, that's you have ships, you unlock new ships, and you upgrade these ships by levels. One of the things I don't like about this game is the fact that ship combat can be tediously slow, especially if you're facing an AI opponent. Oftentimes, it is a situation where I know I will win. The AI has no way of winning at that point, short of me just going AFK and putting all my ships not to attack anything. And nonetheless, the AI doesn't give up. The AI will keep fighting and firing and turning in circles. And the AI's if you're, for example, the Imperial Navy fighting a Chaos AI, his ships are a lot faster. You have to maneuver around him everywhere until you finally get in range to shoot him down. It takes a very long time and is really tedious. I think that is the main detraction from this, is that the combat doesn't feel very fast. It's very tactical. It involves a lot of strategic thinking. It involves some on-the-fly thinking. It even involves some quick reactions using the special maneuvers, but it's not fast-paced. And I would have liked it to be a little bit faster. I would have liked this to be maybe with cheaper ships but bigger fleets. I would have preferred that because it allows you more of an RTS feel. Now, developers don't want to go for this, and that's their prerogative as the developers. I just feel it detracts a little bit from the gameplay personally. If you like what you're seeing here, let me talk a little bit more in depth about how the combat and the various combat antics work. The map is a 2D plane, as you can see. Your ships can move freely around the map, but they can't move up and down in 3D space. Now, you might say this is a bad thing. You could, but as we've seen in Homeworld Deaths of Karak, that has taken the original Homeworld IP, which was a full 3D RTS in full 3D space, and put it on a 2D plane. It still didn't lose any of the flavor because they use a variety of smart tactics to give you the feel for space and combat. Now, this game does something quite similar. One, it has dust clouds, where your ships can hide in to break enemy line of sight and to break enemy lock-on and things like that. These are the little clouds you see on the minimap. Other than that, there's asteroid fields. Now, if you can get the upgrade that your ship doesn't take any damage from asteroids, then for you, obviously, it's a very good tactical thing to hide in the asteroid fields or push your ships through them while you're on a chase to cut corners. And your enemy can't go in there because his or her ships will take quite a beating from the various asteroids. Now, each ship also has a bunch of special abilities. These are a cooldown reducing reload ability, a brace for impact ability that increases your armor percentage, and an ability that strengthens your prow. And they have a bunch of different abilities using that. They also have an emergency repair ability, which is on a long cooldown, but it allows you to do things like put out fires that may have started on your ship because the enemy is blowing it up with torpedoes and rockets. Lastly, ships have shields. These shields, when broken, your ship starts taking hull damage. When these shields start regenerating, you'll see a purple bar. It will slowly regenerate. When they fill up, your shields will come back. Now, Chaos has very weak shields, So chaos shields are easily popped. If you're the orcs or the Imperial Navy, your shields are quite a bit stronger, so you will not have that issue quite as fast. And this is the essence of the game. If you like what you're seeing here, there's tactical gameplay where you have to assemble your fleet within a point limit. You have to level up your ships with a variety of skills and have to combine your fleet based on what you think your opponent is going to do, and then tactically fight him in a variety of scenarios, such as cruiser clash, which is just what we're seeing right now on screen, data recovery, which is stealing data, escort missions where you have to get out carriers and one side is attacking and the other side is defending. There's a variety of different ways to play the game, and you need different fleets, different compositions, different upgrades, maybe even different ships overall for that. So that is a really cool thing. I really like it. It is a really good game and is well developed, but as I said, the combat is really slow and can drag on quite a while. Even knowing now that I have already lost, I cannot get any further out of it. This combat took way longer than it should. I should have probably given up at this point. If you're the AI, it just doesn't give up. It'll drag on. If you're facing a equally strong player on the opposing team, you will end up having battles that will last a very long time. Not because they last a very long time and they're very intense, or they're battles with a lot of back and forth. No, they last a very long time because the enemy has to catch up to you, and the enemy has to kill you, and it takes a while because ships take a while to die, and it just drags out quite a bit. Now, if that is not an issue for you, if you think that's actually cool, where progressive combat and methodical combat is the norm, where you have to think and plan ahead, then this is definitely a title for you. The multiplayer, with a lot more players coming in, and with a larger player base, it will mean that your matchmaking to other players will be to people of your own rank and skill level. Now, matchmaking works pretty well, but because matchmaking only really accounts for your admiral's levels, which is basically your character level, and the point base for the combat, what it doesn't do quite well is account for individual ship levels. A level 5 or level 6 ship is quite a bit stronger than a level 1 or level 2 ship. Now, if you're a very good player, you can offset that and rise in rank nonetheless. So there is going to be some balance there, at least initially, before that evens out. Be aware of this. So once that is ironed out, the multiplayer component is going to be very cool. I really hope it has a decent community because this is quite a niche game. The appeal for Warhammer 40k space, real-time tactical strategy games is not that big. RTSs in general are a niche title, and this is a niche within a niche. So I'm not sure how good or big the player base of this title will be. I do fully hope that it does have a very healthy one because the game is very good. Now, that so far on the multiplayer aspect and the skirmish aspect. Let's talk about the campaign, and then we'll wrap up and everything. If you want to skip the campaign section where I'll talk about the story and all that stuff and avoid spoilers, I have put an annotation on screen to skip to the conclusion of the review. There might be spoilers in that, I cannot promise that, but if you want to skip ahead to that, there's going to be an annotation on screen for that. And let's talk about story then a little bit. Okay, so welcome to the campaign. This is turn 9 of the campaign, and let me talk a little bit about what in hell's name is going on here. Now, the campaign has you play as the Imperial Navy. You are a captain, and you are given quite a few missions to go to worlds and do a variety of things and fight off enemies. These enemies are the orcs, these enemies are the Eldar, these enemies are the Chaos Legion. And you fight to save and contain planets. Each turn, you will get a priority mission, which is the one that's glowing right now, which is a story mission, which will progress the story. And then you will have a different deployment that will allow you to recapture or go after one of the worlds that is taken. As you can see in the top of the screen, there is a bunch of systems. Now, these systems are grayed out because I have a priority mission here, so I have to do that first. But each of these has a bunch of different worlds, and each world has a bunch of different bonuses for you as the player. Now, this is vitally important because every turn you're going to have a priority mission, every turn you're going to have to do something, and every turn you are going to have to at least try and liberate a world to keep those bonuses, because otherwise you will be in a world of hurt. So what are these bonuses? What is going on screen right now? Now, first, you have Renown. Now, we already talked about Renown in the section related to the multiplayer and the skirmishes. But Renown here works the same way. You have ships. These are Imperial Navy ships. Don't they look awesome? And these ships allow you to upgrade themselves with renown. Same way as it is in the skirmish system. You unlock level up, you unlock new ships, you get those ships, you level them up. Stats, upgrades, skills, crew, and even though I don't have them unlocked in the campaign so far, you have favors. Pretty cool. And all these ships look absolutely fantastic. In the campaign, this is called the Port Maw, like the base, the big location, the big shipyard. So you can go there at any time and dock and upgrade your ships and tune them and all that good stuff. In the galaxy map, you have a bunch of different sectors. Each sector has a bunch of planets. Each of these planets has a bunch of bonuses associated with them. For example, if we go to Orange World, we can look at the bonus and see that Orange World is a agri world, which increases the amount of renown that I would lose if this world was taken. So the current penalty I have is -3. So each combat I do, I will lose 3% of totally gained renown, and I need renown. Now obviously, this is not that big a deal. 3%, yeah, that's fine. But you have different worlds. You have worlds that, for example, have Omnissiah temples. If we lose these worlds, I will lose a bunch of abilities in relation to upgrade costs. I will have much more expensive upgrades. I have worlds which increase my repair cost if I lose them. Worlds that lower the chance I have to get a free deployment randomly during a turn. So keeping your world safe is quite important. Again, you can fail these missions. Nothing tells you that you can't fail. For example, the Orange World mission, this is the mission we are looking at here right now. I failed it twice already, but that is in essence how it goes. Now I've lost 5 out of 50 worlds. I have a special, which is the Hand of Darkness, which is a quest item. I have 5 Blackstone Fortresses, which allow me to defend my worlds against invaders without me being there. I have a bunch of properties in the world. You can see it. I have 8 out of 10 portal worlds. I have 45 out of 48 produce worlds. So there's a bunch of things here I can look at and see, hey, what am I getting shafted in? For example, if I lose penal worlds, it's going to reduce the troop value I have. So I want that up. I only have 3 penal worlds, so that is quite heavy. Then in the bottom left, we have the threat. Threats are based on what the enemy races do. Now, these threats are going to grow regardless, but if they win a battle, or if they take a world and you don't contest it, they are more likely to take another. So a part of the campaign's secondary objective outside the story you are progressing in is containing these threats. And if you lose, and the game will tell you basically you fucked up, you done, you died, game over, go ahead and start over from your last save or whatever you want. The combat in the campaign works basically the same as the skirmish missions. Oftentimes though, in the campaign you'll have NPC AI characters or very specific objectives within the map that you will not have in the skirmish missions. Things like bombing a world, things like moving to a location. And one of the things that I don't like about the campaign is that it doesn't really always explain those quite well. For example, one of the missions is to bomb a planet from orbit, and you go to a very specific location in the combat map to do that. Sadly, the game never tells you that beforehand. So if you are like me and you go, well, I have a bunch of really heavy ships that have a bunch of armor and that can like destroy everything from halfway across the map, that mission you will fail instantly. So you have to reload this previous save and go from there, because you need mobile fast ships that can get to a location and do the bombing run. So there is some issues with the way the game explains itself. Now as for actual story, it's corny, but it's 40k, it fits the lore, it fits the world, it fits with thematics, so it fits quite well. I don't find it particularly compelling. I don't find it particularly attractive. Maybe that's because I'm not exactly a great fan of the 40k universe, or maybe it's because I'm just missing something in the story. What I would really find compelling though about the campaign mode, and let me go in the story here, is this screen here. I'll let you listen to the voiceover for a second before continuing.
To test the Chaos defenses, but no ship has returned. Admiral, you are to take control of this station with your fleet and seize the Eye of Night.
I will do whatever is necessary to complete the mission, Inquisitor.
I'm concerned about all the effort we are putting into gathering these Xenos relics, Inquisitor. The Imperium doesn't need alien help to fight these heretics.
Make no mistake, Captain. This is not a request, but an inquisitional order.
Okay, so that was a bit of the voiceover in the game. It is really, really good. I really like it. And what you're seeing here is the screen for every mission. And unlike the skirmish mode where you have a bunch of missions where you have a attacker point fleet or a defender point fleet and you have to just build your ship around that and you get points for what you do, the campaign mode tells you the attacker is going to have 600 points. You may have less. You could have like 200 points or 400 points. These battles are not the way skirmish battles are. They're not balanced that way. But the rewards are also on the side, so you know how much renown you'll get, how much renown, how much bonus modifiers you'll have. It's a pretty cool screen. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch this and then skip ahead to the end of the mission because I already showed you the combat and I will talk a little bit more about the world and interacting with it. Okay, there we go. We have done a mission, we have lost the mission, and now we have access to the entire map. Now, as I said before, you can switch between these various clusters, and each cluster has a bunch of worlds, and these worlds have different abilities that they give you. As you can see, I have lost a bunch of worlds, and for example, I've lost a couple to the orcs, and I've here one that is being lost to chaos. And each of these worlds cost me a deployment to go to, and these deployments only have one left. You get 2 per round, and if you get lucky, you can get 3 if the dice rolls are with you and you get a random chance based on which worlds you control, especially portal worlds, allow you an extra deployment per turn. Okay. Between each combat, you can go back to Port Ma, upgrade your ships, upgrade your levels, all that good stuff, spend your renown, etc. And then you can do these missions. Now, we already displayed you this screen. This is a different mission than the one we just had. Again, all these missions are also available in the skirmish and multiplayer. And this is a mission that has you destroy some defensive platforms and then get ships behind enemy lines. Pretty straightforward. We have this other mission on the orc side of things that basically says destroy the enemy ships. Straight up cruiser combat. And if we take a look at some of the other missions, let's see. We have one here, also an orc mission. Same, destroy the enemy platforms, go behind enemy lines. See here, and we have one that says that I need to recover the data and warp out. So these are all different varieties of missions you have available, and they do deviate a little bit within the story. Now, the story missions are not a make or break thing. They're not a thing that you either have to succeed for the story to progress or you fail and the story ends. They do allow you to fail, but they only make it harder for you. Fail to defend the world, lose some bonuses. Fail to complete a story mission objective, lose out on it. As you can see, I failed that mission. And now the Eye of Night, which is a special item, I'm not sure what it does, but it's a special item, is now in the hands of Abaddon, which is the Chaos Legion. That's a pretty cool thing. So it allows a bit of a diverging story. Now, how diverging, I couldn't tell you. But it is a bit of a diverging story, allowing you to have more control over the end result instead of just being a halfway passive bystander in a story that unfolds, where you just have to do combat and click through the rest. You actually have to think about things and plan ahead in terms of which worlds you want to liberate, which worlds you want to save, where you want to spend your resources, your deployments, your upgrades on, all that stuff. So that is really cool. I really enjoy that. So and that really is all the game is. If we head back to the main menu here, I'll run it down from the top. So what we have is a pretty cool multi-pronged campaign where you play the Imperial Navy, fighting the other 3 races. From there, you have solo skirmishes that allow you to level up your admiral through a variety of ways using one of the 4 factions and get a bunch of combat experience. Pretty good. Then you have custom game, which is like a solo skirmish but without the entire leveling up thing and unlocking things. You just start up a game, you have all ships, all points, you can customize that. It is pretty good for learning new tactics or trying out new ship combinations or fleet combinations without actually having to unlock all of that stuff. Pretty cool feature. And then you have the multiplayer, where you select one of the races, and then I go online, and basically the same idea as the skirmish matches against the AI. I will either do 1v1 or 2v2, and it will tell me if I want to fight the same faction. And if I want to do 2v2, I can invite a player, same way in skirmish. Except now I'm facing actual humans who will butcher me from left to right and actually know what they're doing. And that is the game in a nutshell. Now, in conclusion, cool campaign, with a pretty basic story, but because it is multi-pronged and allows sort of worse way to play, which is a pretty cool idea. I like that a lot. Then we have custom games that allow you to try out things and play around if you just want to do a quick game and not think about it. Solo skirmish, which is you versus the AI. Multiplayer, which is a lot like solo skirmish, except it's online versus players. And that really brings the whole thing together in Battlefleet Gothic Armada, a very well developed Warhammer 40k Armada RTS adaptation of the tabletop game. It is really well made, it performs quite well, and if you are into this sort of combat I've shown you now, or if you're into the campaign, then I do suggest you take a look at the game on Steam. It is coming out on April the 21st, and it is I think a full price release, or at least 40 euros or somewhere in that region. So you might have to see if that is worth your wallet. I do recommend the game though if you are into this sort of thing. It's really a niche title, but it really does excel in what it tries to accomplish. It is really, really cool. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, click the like button below. If you didn't like this video, there's a dislike button for exactly that purpose. And leave a comment. Tell us what we can do better. Tell us what we did great. We want to hear from all of you. And if you want to see more content like this on the channel, just press that subscribe button and we will deliver. So until then, I wish you a good day. Until next time, right here on Guy Logic.